Damn, I'm so pretty, I want to kiss myself. We recording? How come you didn't tell me that? Het-Heru, Assalamu alaikum, namaste. This is I-Ching with another broadcast for you. And today I want to talk about how I'm afraid of black people. That's right, I'm going to give you the real truth about that. But first I want you to hit that like button, subscribe to my channel if this is your first time watching, and download my ebook, The True Cause of Slavery, and the Osiris Report. They're both really two kick-butt ebooks, and you'll love them. They're free, so download them today. But let's get to the subject in hand. I want to talk about this. Earlier, I did a video where I discussed how women in Ghana were taking pills to have lighter-skinned babies, all right? And I talked about how that is an entity, a virus that exists in the ether. And trying to confront this, according to the Western ideology about talking, educating people about, hey, these pills are dangerous, is really putting a band-aid on the symptom, We have to start looking at addressing the cause and not the symptoms. And this is why in our ancient cultures, we have to give credit to our ancestors who were very wise, and they really explored every aspect of the metaphysical. I also talked about Max Egan, a conspiracy theorist who has a YouTube channel, and he's a radio personality who talked about how white people were the ones that brought to light the ancient cultures, but does in one breath admit that the ancient wisdom and knowledge, the advanced wisdom and knowledge, the progenitors of that were people of color. Now, to give you an idea of what's going on in the modern day world, there are two forms of thought. The first one says that in order to solve a problem, we need direct intervention, and this comes out of Cartesian logic, the Greek and Roman way of thinking. So what does that mean? If somebody hits you, you hit them back. If you don't like what's going on in government, you're going to protest, or you form a PAC, a political action committee, or basically getting the politicians in your pocket, or you vote come next election. Now, that is the left brain linear thought process at work, but because we come from ancient culture that is a right brain integrated culture that uses both left and right brain, we don't think in those Cartesian ways, the one-to-one correspondence. We think of indirect ways, holistic thinking. So this tells us that, if we want to confront things, example, Max Egan thinks that we don't need government. So if we do away with government, the people can self-govern themselves. That is a fallacy, because if you don't spiritually educate people, then when you remove government, you're going to have a post-apocalyptic America. You're going to have stuff like the Purge. People go crazy, stealing, robbing, because they're not spiritually elevated. In fact, when the Greek historian Herodotus went to Egypt, one thing that he noticed when he was reporting in his book, The Histories, you can check that out, is that there were no police in ancient Kemet or Egypt, that the people lived harmoniously. There was no crime, there was no pedophiles, and he stated these things. And he also was talked about how the Kemetian people were black. So we need to get that truth stated. So with that thought in mind, when we want to confront racism, we don't have tolerance. No, we don't have sessions where we educate people that we all should live in harmony. We don't put out TV ads that talk about, multicultural diversity is the answer. We don't have the EEOC going and checking and seeing. We have affirmative action initiatives. The way we deal with this is that we go into the ether and we look for the virus, the ergomor, the spirit of racism that exists, because you have to understand that we are programs. We're constantly downloading and uploading software. All right, and thoughts are not your own. Thoughts are transferable, but if you get a thought and you dwell on it, you make it your own, and then you manifest that into a third-dimensional experience. All right, so you have to be careful about the thoughts you dwell on. But the more important thing to understand is that there is an ether, and in this ether exists all kinds of thought forms, all kinds of entities, some we created and some that are man-made. A lot of them we create are some that are intentionally created by secret societies or secret organizations. And one of the ones that is powerful is the ergamor, or the spirit of racism. So how did our ancient ancestors deal with this from the non-Greek or non-Western perspective? They would gather everybody. Well, if they saw that there was some type of divergent behavior that was not conducive to the tribe or nation, they would gather up all the elders, the priests and priestesses, and they would sit in the circle, and they would go into a deep state of trance using certain herbs to put them into the trance, and mantras, and then they would astral project their consciousness into the ether, and then look for the entity, all right, and confront the entity, and actually find out what the entity needed to turn it back into the right way, all right? But in order to do that, our ancestors themselves had to be fully rooted in whole brain thinking. They had to be fully rooted in justice, ma'at. If you remember the Empire Strikes Back, where Luke Skywalker was going to Cloud City to confront Vader and save his friends, and Yoda said only a fully trained Jedi Knight can confront the dark side, because if you're not fully trained and you confront the dark side, you will become an agent of evil yourself. So in order to change something in this fourth dimensional holographic experience, you don't need affirmations, you don't need really cool sayings like I am wealthy, I am this. You don't need that. You can use that, but what you can do is change your belief system, because once you change your belief system, then the energy vibrates and it affects other people. All right. That's why in ancient cultures we never believed you were an individual. You could never just do whatever you want. You didn't have that God-given right, because your thoughts, your energy permeated outward into the ether, and other people would download those things. And if you were somebody addicted to drugs and you said, well, I'm not hurting anybody else, no, you are, because you're infecting the other people with your thought virus. Okay. So anyway, going back to what I was saying, so it was twice in my life I went into a deep state of trance, and when I went into that trance, I astral projected my consciousness into the ether, and I confronted this entity of racism. And the first thing it did was infected my consciousness. So I started thinking myself how afraid I was of black people, how I didn't want to be around black people, how I thought black people may have been evil. Now this is contrary to who I am, you know what I mean? So, and what you'll find is many people, and it's very paradoxical, because you'll find people who are Latino, you'll find people who are black. Well, let's take people who are Latino. A lot of them, they found out in the Census Bureau were checking off white, that they wouldn't be associated with being Hispanic or Afro Latino or Afro-Cuban, so they would check off white. And so you'll see in the case of Michael Jackson, Sammy Sosa, Little Kim, that these individuals are using bleacher because they don't like their skin. Now that is merely the symptom, but what is the root cause of this? The root cause is the entity that exists in the ether. So we have to deal with that. We don't need to sit individuals down and try to educate them or plead to them to do the right thing, because a lot of times that will not work, because this ergamor, this pendulum, this spirit, or if you want to use the word demonic entity, you can use that, but it's not actually correct, because demons are something else. But if you want to use those terms, it's very powerful, and it has an emotional resonance and appeal to you. It's not affecting you on a logical perspective, because logically you can ration, well, if I'm part black, then I shouldn't be against black people. Logically you can ration that out. But it's the emotional thing that it grips you with, and then it infects you with. So when I was in the ether, these thoughts of hating black people, hating myself, hating my parents were coming to mind. But then when I came out of that trance state and my consciousness went back into my third dimensional body, then I was awakened and realized what was going on. And what you have to understand is this thing, this virus, is very clever and it's intelligent. And the first and foremost thing that it does is it's about self-preservation. And this is something that was created by the ruling elite, the oligarchy, to rule the planet by creating factions and divisions. Okay, so we're not going to solve the problem of racism on this planet, of hating people of color, by simply talking to people, by simply showing more television programs that are diverse. You've got to deal with this evil entity that has been purposely implanted into the ether and that is being downloaded by people across the planet. A lot of people is what I say, and Max Egan took this out of context. And I sincerely believe that he's watching my videos when I said that white people are victims of the mind programming that's coming from the entity in the ether. But that doesn't absolve them for responsibilities for what they have done to African Americans during slavery. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because as I said before, thoughts travel through the air, but if you grab the thought and dwell on it, you will manifest that into this realm, and you then become responsible for it. Okay? So I want you to understand that, and I want you to understand the ancient wisdom of our ancestors, the African ancestors, and the Native American shaman, how intelligent they were to operate based on whole brain thinking, and to understand that to confront a problem, you don't have to stand up to it on a one-on-one confrontational basis. That there's an indirect way to deal with something that gets to the root cause. Example, if I'm having troubles with my mate and I want her to love me more, even though I don't know how that's possible because I'm so damn pretty, I could, I can go and, I don't know, get a facial, get a manicure, cut my hair, get some nice cologne, very expensive cologne. The ladies like that. But, I could do that, or I could sit and meditate, astral project into the ether, and then create an ergomor or a virus or entity that is about love and harmony. Yes, those entities exist in the ether. They do. About love and harmony, and that will solidify my relationship with her. Do you understand what I mean? And just so you know on how this occult practice works, we're always creating thought forms. But the thought forms that we create sometimes are not powerful enough to do any damage or to do any good. And the more people agree to align with your thinking, the more powerful the thought form or entity becomes. So when a group of people are aligned in thinking, that creates a very powerful ergomor. Think about that. And that's exactly precisely how the oligarchy took control of this planet, because they got the masses of the planet to agree on a certain idea, which created the entity, and they empowered these people with an emotional response, which made the entity very powerful. So it's infecting people who don't even want to be affected by this idea of racism and factionalism. Okay? So think about that. That is the essence of the problems that we're having. And this is why you'll find that most people on the planet have an aversion to people of color in ancient civilizations that were spawned by people of color. This is why you'll get a Max Egan who will come along and say, well, it was white people who brought the ancient knowledge to light. He cannot, people like him cannot, admit to themselves that ancient wisdom and knowledge was spawned and brought to light by people of color, because that ergomor is up there and it affects white people to the umpteenth degree, and they may not be conscious of it, which is what the movie Get Out talked about. How in the movie he was encountering these white people who were saying the racist things but weren't really aware that it was racist. It's just how some people call, well, that's their cultural upbringing. No, that's an entity affecting them. That's what it is. And the entity is a cultural norm. That's what it is. It becomes a cultural norm. Because in ancient Kemet, we did not have police. And the reason we didn't have police, because we put in place a culture that dictating certain morals. All right? This is why ancient Kemet was one of the most moral civilizations there were on the face of the earth. But anyway, that's my video for today. It's already too long, damn it. This is Kasang Het-Heru Salamat. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and consider giving a donation by PayPal. Until my next broadcast, I'm in Ra.